Mary Helena Fortune was one of Australia's most prolific authors of all time and a pioneer of the detective novel, being the first person in the world to write from the detective's point of view and include real-life details in her writing. She was also the first person in Australia to publish a detective novel. Born in Belfast, Ireland, about 1833, her mother died in childbirth or soon thereafter. She was brought up by her father. They moved to Canada, where Mary did her schooling, and at the age of 18, married Joseph Fortune in 1851. Together they had a son and named him Joseph George or Georgie. In 1855, alone with her son, Mary left Canada for Australia to find her father. Mary had been commissioned to write about the goldfields for the Lady's Companion. Upon arrival on the goldfields, she abandoned the idea. Who would write pages at 15 shillings when one paid 9 shillings per day for milk? And for a woman's magazine too? Nay, there was nothing of the namby-pamby elegance of ladies' literature in our stirring, hardy and eventful life on the early goldfields. Mary arrived in Melbourne and found her father running a store at Tarilta, south of Castlemaine. Mary published sketches in the Buninyong Advertiser, and her first writing printed in Australia was Song of the Diggers. It appeared in the Mount Alexander Mail in December of 1855, and a week later was reprinted by the Bendigo Advertiser under the signature MHF. Hurrah for the free new land, and hurrah for the diggers bold, and hurrah for the strong unfettered right to search in the hills for gold. Turn up the sods, my strong free mates, and dig with fearless hand, for there's not a castled lordling here in all this glorious land. Breathe for a moment, one glad breath, throw up the shadeless brow. Where is the paid taskmaster's eye? We were never men till now. Men with a right to toil, men with a right to speak, and a strength we will never use, please God, to trample down the weak. Oh, brightly gleams the ore in the digger's cradled rock, but 'tis found in a bank till free to all, in coffer all unlocked. Then dig, 'tis for wife and babes, we are marring beauties now. But the time will come for the waving grain, and our sons shall hold the plough. On the strength of her writing, Mary was invited to interview for a position as sub-editor of the Mount Alexander Mail. However, the offer was retracted upon learning that she was a female. She would later recall of the incident. I was interviewed by a man who stared in open-eyed wonder at me and my youngster, whom I led by the hand. Are you MHF? He questioned with evident disbelief. Yes. I can hardly credit it. You had better see Mr. Saint. But as for the request that MHF would call, we want a reporter and sub-editor, and thought that he might suit. She stayed with her father for several years, travelling to various gold rushes, including Chinaman's Flat at Timor, Inkerman and Kingowa. She had a second son, Joseph, in 1856. Rather than list him as illegitimate, she gave Joseph Fortune as the father. George, her child, died in Kingowa in 1858. That same year, Mary met and married Mounted Constable Percy Rollo Brett. They came into Denali for the wedding. She described Denali as a gay babel of fun and full of amusements for a honeymooning pair. The marriage, however, was short-lived, but its effects ongoing. Mary drew inspiration from this relationship in her stories, starting with the stolen specimens by Waif as an Australian mounted trooper. When the Australian Journal started publishing, she sent them a poem. They liked it and paid her for it. Within a short time, she had sent in more poems, short stories and novels that were serialised in the journal. Her writing career would continue with them for over 40 years. Journalist Henry W. Mitchell wrote of her, "Beyond all doubt one of the most talented, versatile and interesting writers of fiction that we have or ever had in the Australian colonies." He congratulated the Australian Journal on having her amongst their staff. Table Talk magazine wrote that she was probably the only truly bohemian lady writer who has ever earned a living by her pen in Australia. And she wrote of her own career that her tea tastes better having earned every penny that bought it.